So this morning we are joined by Lindsay Walker, who is a former cricket player and a former pro cricket coach who between the year 2000 and 2001 coached the Malaysian national team. And since then, he's taken on a role as a private coach and become an advocate for mental health awareness. He's the founder of the
So
Newey
this
100.
morning we are joined by Lindsay Walker, who is a former cricket player and a former...
Turn that volume off. There we go.
That's all right.
So yeah, as a founder of the Newey 100, that's an event where athletes and members of the public take part in a 100-kilometre marathon to raise funds for Lifeline and raise awareness for mental health. And that was the first event in January of this year, and it raised over $50,000 for Lifeline Direct Newcastle. Lindsay's a proud supporter and advocate for Lifeline and mental health awareness, and is continuing his work with the organisation to support people in a local community. So welcome, Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with a little bit about your background. I mentioned in the intro you were a former pro cricketer. Can you just tell me about that time and kind of how that then led you on to where you are now?
Yeah, I think every child has their dream, whether it's to be a movie star or anything like that. And I thought, my dad was a cricketer, and I just had this great desire to be a professional sportsman. I had a few sports I was quite good at, and very quickly, sort of age 14, I was, playing a very high level of cricket, and I was lucky enough. My father was English. I was still doing well in the Australian system, and Dad obviously was English. I had a dual citizen of both countries, and kind of got invited to go over to England and start playing cricket, and finished my schooling here in year 12. That wasn't that successful because I obviously had that dream, and went back over to the UK, and for 4 or 5 years I was a professional sportsman in cricket. Sustained a bit of a thumb injury, which didn't quite come back to the level that I wanted, and so I can perform at that level. So I retired, and age 24, I became a sort of a professional cricket coach in England.
Mm-hmm. And then that career took you kind of around the world. You spent some time obviously in the UK and then Malaysia. I think you lived in Melbourne.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd done a little bit of coaching in Malaysia, and then they found out that I retired as a player. I was in the coaching, so they offered me a position to be their national coach. So I went and did that, and that was an amazing experience. We lived in Malaysia. Obviously, my background was at 19, I got married. By 22, I had 2 children. So sort of aged, had 2 kids, aged 2 and 3, little blondies, and we were traveling all around Asia and through Canada, and it was incredible. And then that came to an end, and I wanted to come back to Australia, and we ended up in Melbourne there for 10 years. And I was a private coach. I've got an online business where I sell books and bits, and I got involved with Cricket Victoria, Cricket Australia, and then life kind of went a little bit different. Aged 40, a 20-year marriage finished, and with older children, and that kind of got me into what's the next part of Lindsay Walker's life. I came back to Newcastle, where I originated, which was very familiar to me, and the lifestyle that I probably really enjoyed. And with the children finding their own lives and passion, I came back to Newcastle.
Mm-hmm. So that was actually quite a big transition for you, returning home after all those years overseas, which is, a change in itself. But then you also had, a relationship that was having some difficulty, and eventually you finished that relationship. So that was really around that time that you began to kind of feel like you were searching for something or were feeling a bit lost. You said to me, can you tell me about that time and how you were feeling, what you were experiencing?
Yeah, I think probably if I had my time again, I would probably not, I've got married, had children so young, but I've got wonderful children. I probably was brought up in a family where, Mum was pretty strict, and from the sort of, her father was from the the Great Depression era, so I probably didn't get a lot of loving care that I probably would have liked as a child. And that's no disrespect to mum or dad. It's just how you're brought up. And I guess out of that, I never really probably knew much about self care, self love. I have that faith in myself. I was a little bit lost. Then obviously got married, had kids, and kind of giving to everyone else. And then when I became 40 years old, and my life was like, oh my goodness, I've got potentially another 40 years alive, and I don't really know who Lindsay Walker is, and I want to find who that person was. So I guess for those first 40 years of my life, I had a stress in me that I wasn't happy with, ultimately knowing who I was, and it sort of hit me real hard. I best sort this out real quick, or else I could go down not a path of destruction, but being on your own, you can probably start, heading down the pub a little bit more, or doing things that I knew weren't me to cope.
Yeah. And yeah, I think what you've said, resonates with a lot of people. So I think many people have that experience of growing up through childhood, maybe with family members not, being able to express their emotions, or not, supporting their kids, teaching them how to do that themselves. So we grow up not really knowing kind of what our needs are, or how, to have them met ourselves. And then we kind of do all the things that society, tells us we should do. We, go find a career, we study, we find a career, we get married, have children. And then, often find that either that isn't actually fulfilling us, or that, there's something missing, or, we haven't connected with ourselves. I think that's kind of what you're really saying there. And so you got to this
Yes.
culmination point where some things had kind of fallen away that maybe had kind of masked that experience, or, you'd been, really focused on playing cricket, your career, and raising a family. And then when that kind of transition happened, you were like, oh wow, what is there, what's left? And you kind of went on this search. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience of mental health kind of around that time, and what was happening for you?
Well, firstly, you just put that my life in a nutshell very well presented there. Obviously, you're trained professionally in all you do, and I might take you around as my spokesman. But no, mental health for me, I guess I don't really know what it was. It was just a massive stress inside, and just that, I guess, being a professional sportsman, you have an incredible drive to want to know, play well, and I just had this thing in me that I just knew there's a better me, and I guess that it was just a real stress, and I didn't quite understand it. I did go to a doctor probably early 2000s, and said to him, mate, I don't feel very happy in myself, and I just got the old stiff upper lip, old boy. You've done well out of your career. You should be able to get through this. And you're like, oh, all right, well, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And I still walked away from there. I'm going, nah, I'm not happy with this. And you did hear people in sort of the early 2000s say, if you're struggling a little bit, go and see your doctor. And I went and saw another GP that I had a good relationship with, and told him what was going on with my life at the time. And he said, mate, whenever you want to come and sit down, just come in, and we'll just have a chat. And then eventually he said, oh, I'll put you through to a psychologist. I was trialed on sort of a month of antidepressants, and I tried them, and I go, this isn't for me. And I believe that I can, just through just understanding myself better, I can actually, become a happier Lindsay. And I was lucky through the Players Association where I was in England. I contacted them, and they put me through a sort of a sports psychology course. And in the process of that, it was like a psychology for me to understand myself more, and give myself tools. And that, I was still married at that time, but I was learning so much. And then obviously when I became divorced on my own, I probably did suffer with what I would call more of a loneliness in myself. I wasn't That's probably what I would say I was struggling with, because I didn't probably love myself enough, didn't know myself enough. And I kind of got into getting up earlier, going down and watch the sunrise. Always was I went in and out of being very fit. So I knew what fitness did for me. And then through talking to my, doing the sports psychology, I started to listen to very inspiring people. And because I work from home a lot on my online business, so I'm always listening to podcasts and inspirational people. So constantly feeding my brain, with positivity and different ways to think. And really from that, because I felt that little bit homeless, and I did a little bit of cooking for the Salvos at Christmas time when we were in Melbourne as a family. I started to get involved in homeless people with the Soul Cafe here in Newcastle. I love doing that. I had to get up early and cook breakfast every Monday morning, and then we did the sleep out for the Soul Cafe, and from there I got involved. I wanted to do Merriweather Stairs. I'm pretty much there every day, and I decided I was going to do 50,000 of those straight, and I did that for Soldier On. I had quite an affinity with the military, so I represented those people and got some wonderful friends from that. Which was a very hard thing to do. I did something for Ronald McDonald House where we rode for 12 hours in the gym. And then it kind of got into, from there, creating the Newey 100.
Wow. I really want to talk about the Newey 100 in a minute, but there was a lot there. So let's just back. So really you had these kind of two quite different experiences with two different GPs that you went to. One wasn't such a great experience and one was a far more positive experience. And I think it's valuable just to pause on that, because I think, it's valuable for people to know that if they are struggling with their mental health, it may not be the first GP or first psychologist that they go to. Sometimes you have to go to one or two or a few really to find someone that you click with, that you resonate with, that, is on the same page as you.
Absolutely. One of the trainings,
there's not one size fits all for everyone. So
and with some of the training I've learned, especially in the crisis support and keeping people safe, is a lot of people don't have energy. They might try once and then they're like, oh, that's not a positive experience, and it's hard for them to actually get the energy again to actually seek that help. So I guess you just got to, you're only one step away from potentially changing your life in such a positive way. So that would be one message I would say, is if you just haven't had that great experience, well, I'm an example of, I just could have given up there and go, oh, well, that's it, and just live a life of, from what that first doctor said to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such an important message for the perseverance, really. Yeah, for sure. And then from that, you really began to kind of implement your own kind of measures, I suppose. So the kind of mainstream medical offering was pretty standard. You were offered talking therapy and medication. But you also discovered that there was like a whole range of other things that you could do to support your own mental health. And they were, physical exercise, getting up early, being in nature, watching sunset, you said the sunrise, really connecting with, those moments of, I guess, joy and quiet. And then you got involved in kind of some charity work, and that inspired you then to go on and do some, quite significant endurance events here in Newcastle. You said the Merriweather Stairs, and then you're just recently founded the Newey 100.
Yep.
So can you just tell me a little bit about that event?
Yeah, so I guess when I did the 52,000 Merriweather Stairs, there was a man there that donated once, and then on the day donated again. And later on, when I'd finished, I saw him down the sunrise, and he goes, mate, he's a sort of a marketeer background from Bondi, very successful man, and lived in Mayfield at the time. And he goes, I knew you wouldn't raise much money. And I'm like, mate, I raised $2,500. And I was like, mate, you don't know what I went through that day to do everything I did. So I felt quite disheartened by that. But he said, come over to my house, we'll have a chat. So he told me about the Balmoral burn in Sydney, where, the Humpty Dumpty Foundation, where they've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he gave me an idea, and I thought, it's just going to, up Strzelecki, up Memorial Drive. It just would have taken up my whole life, every single day of my life, to prepare it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went a little bit quiet for and that would have involved a lot of people. So I went a little bit quiet with that for a couple of years and kept fit, kept doing some own charity stuff and promoting what I thought was, more individuals. And then I got involved in a boot camp down at Merewether, where I used to train at the stairs and saw these people and thought, I'd like to do the boot camp with these men. And I guess we started doing some pretty extreme events, or just, one-offs, like running up Tyrrell Street in the city there. And that's a very steep hill. Running up Merewether Stairs 100 times and then doing 10 push-ups at the bottom of every set. And it just just that light switch of that man telling me about, you need to get other people involved. And that light bulb moment just came on, and I go to these guys, would you like to get involved in this? And then obviously each person probably invited one other person, and before we knew it, we had 12 people. And you got to go to the council. They're very, very strict about where and how you can do things. You can't really do things around roads, or you need road traffic management, you need public liability. And I was trying to engage some charities who didn't have public liability, or it would have just cost me so much money. And I don't know, it just a phone call to Lifeline or a few charities, and then Lifeline just got back to me, and I'm like, yes, they are, like, they're representing the homeless, the military, Ronald McDonald House, everything. They are just representing everyone in our community. And I just thought, yes, these are the people I want. They had the public liability. I had, the sort of the dozen people to do the event with. And from there, within 8 weeks, $50,000, so many people contacting us going, how good is this? The media were just all over it. And you just like, everything just ticked every box. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's such an incredible achievement. It's really,
yeah.
really
And it also, you said it was athletes. We had one man who was 117 kilos 8 weeks before the event said, yeah, I'm doing it. Never run more than 14 Ks, done the Hilda Harbour. One other bloke had never done more than 10 kilometres in his life. And then 7 weeks before goes, yep, I'm in. We weren't all athletes, and some people went through the Hurt Locker that night to get through the event. It was just purely inspiring to see how a human can actually not suffer, where we had to send them to hospital, nothing like that, but they just went to really tough places to get 100 kilometers out of their body.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a physical endurance, but a mental endurance as well.
Yes.
And tell me how that actually works. You said you did it through the night?
Yes, we started at 4 o'clock it was a Friday, the 25th of January, and we finished the Saturday at 10 a.m. on the 26th. So 18 hours of going through, a lot of the night time. And seeing friends and family, just popping along to encourage people to maybe do 5 or 10 kilometers. And at the end, it's open to the general community to get involved. So we probably it was pouring down with rain really then as well. And unfortunately, so we would have got more people, but probably 200 people joined in the last 10 kilometers with us down, the boardwalk and through Merewether and from Nobby's Beach. It was just Newcastle Bars. It was just incredible.
Amazing, really amazing. And so that event was very much linked to Lifeline. You said they were really key in helping you facilitate that.
Yep.
You've become such a passionate supporter and advocate for Lifeline. You tell me, about their services in Newcastle and how you're involved and what they, you know, do? Because I think a lot of people think that, you know, potentially it's just a crisis line, a suicide kind of prevention line, but it's much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, so it is. So it's Lifeline Newcastle and Hunter. So all the money stays in our community, and they've got a bit of a catchphrase of in the community, for the community, with the community. So it's everything just comes back in. And Lifeline Newcastle, obviously, you know, you've got Lifeline Australia, but there's sort of there's 40 different centres around Australia, and one of them's Newcastle. So they can kind of operate off their own if they're creating more income and awareness and funds. So we're lucky here in Newcastle is at the moment, obviously with COVID, you can ring in. There's a Lifeline number, which is actually 0249402000. If you actually ring that number at the moment, you don't need a referral. You will actually get some counselling for free. And obviously, so if you're in between that time of, you know, from your GP going to a psychologist, you can still ring that. Or I'm being trained to become a crisis support on the phones, and you don't actually have to be suicidal in any way. You can actually be lonely. You can be sad. You can be at home and going, you know what, I'm not having a great day, and you can just ring someone like you know, me and just talk and feel there's someone there. So you don't have to be suicidal. You can be sad or just going through a little bit of distress. You might have had someone die in your family, and 2 or 3 months after, or with the fires that have happened in Australia, you know, it's kind of 2 or 3 months after, everyone's kind of forgotten what you've gone through, but you're still living with it. And it's just a great way to just maybe ring someone and go, you know what, I'm having a bad day, and just get you through that part. And obviously it is a phone call that if you are actually thinking of suicide, you must ring, and they'll keep you safe for maybe 24 hours and, you know, put you in ways and, you know, means that are going to keep you actually alive for the next X amount of years. And I think the greatest thing that I've ever learned is probably someone is going through worse than you and will actually become happy again. So and I used to be a, you know, not a happy Lindsay Walker, and now I'm a very, you know, I'm a happy Lindsay Walker, and I can, if I know that my life or my day is not going so well, I know there's things I can do to you know, create a better emotion in me and walk a happier day.
Mm. And I think that's one of the things that's important to remember in those times of crisis is that, you know, nothing is permanent. Everything, you know, this too shall pass is
Yes.
a common saying in yoga, which is my background. You
Yes.
know, whatever we're going through, this too shall pass. And really, you know, suicide is, someone once said, is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's such a sad thing, and the people you leave behind and
Mm.
all that sort of thing. And, you know, if the message from today comes out that, you know, a happier day will come, so just hang in there, guys, and
Yeah.
and seek help. There's so much help, and obviously you're a trained professional, and had a quick look about what you do, and you've got so many facets to your organisation. And you know, if you like to feel involved in, you know, yoga and all the things that you do for happiness, it's there's great tools there as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think you know, when you've been through your own challenge with mental health, often one of the outcomes is that you want to help other people. And I know that, you know, we both share that ourselves. You know, we've been through our own journey, come out the other side, and really want to be able to support other people in that place, as like a thank you for the people that supported us, but also the sharing of knowledge of all the skills
Yeah.
and tools that we've gained during that time. And I know that you talk yourself about, and I say the same thing, you know, I wouldn't wish that experience that I had going through really debilitating debilitating anxiety and panic disorder and subsequent depression. But the experience of going through that taught me so much and I've gained so much from that. And I feel like I'm a much stronger person, far more compassionate to myself and other people. And I've just gained such a wealth of knowledge, and met some incredible people along the way through that journey. So I feel like it, the suffering, I'm actually quite grateful for it,
Yeah. And I don't just go and do 100,000 Merriweather stairs in 24 hours just for the sheer sake of it's a walk in the park. There's so many things that I do that kind of not make me suffer like, crazy, I like to hurt myself, but I do things, and one of those things out of doing those massive physical campaigns are when you, at the end of it, you are very, very hurt, in pain, but you actually grow. And I think there's a thing I listen to about people that do marathons, before they do it, they're like, oh, I'd never do that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden they do their first marathon and they go, I actually know what that bloke was on about. It actually is a great pain, and you just grow and you become stronger in yourself. And I just guess, listening to people all the time that are inspiring, that have been through difficult times, it's what makes pain actually makes you. And that just, if you told me that 5 years ago, I'd just laugh you in the face. But I've lived that journey, and I guess it can be stuff like, I don't really want to wash the pots tonight, but I'm actually fighting my will, and I do it, and I go, you know what, that was actually good. And then the next time, you just become a stronger person within yourself. And I think, like you said about serving the community, serving the greater cause is probably one of the greatest things you can do, because you just bring happiness to other people, and that just internalizes in you and just puts you on a greater frequency than you've ever known.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about mental health in terms of gender, and because I know, in general, has been a stigma around mental health, and that is beginning to shift. But I know for men, it can be even more challenging to reach out or to talk to people. What's, your experience been? And do you think about it that way, in terms of differences for men and women with mental health?
Well, I was just talking to the general manager of Lifeline Newcastle before I came on, and they are just so, Lifeline is undiscriminative. Doesn't matter who you are, you can contact them. And I think there's a couple of hashtags that I use occasionally. It's not too weak to speak. Let's talk. There's the more you talk, the more you get it out there, the better you are going to be. Life isn't fair. Anyone that thinks life's a bed of roses, you're just going to float along on a white puffy cloud the whole of your life, well, you haven't lived, man. And living and being at the bottom of a hill and climbing a tough hill, getting to the top is the best thing you can do. And they supposedly men, around their 40s, 50s, it's one of the higher, depression rates or suicide rates going. I guess I could have been a statistic like that. 50% of marriages end in divorce. Children, obviously, you miss your children and all that type of thing. And you've got men shared. There's all the statistics that say that, men do not cope that well, but there is also statistics saying that, females potentially look to end their life as well, but they obviously do it in ways that aren't as, it might be a little bit quieter, whether it's an overdose and they wake up and they go, what am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. And, stats I'm learning from Lifeline are that, mental health doesn't discriminate. It is happening all the time. And I think everyone goes through stress in their life. And it's just, I think the more we speak about it, the more we're educating people that actually you do go through it. And there are tools that you can actually get out the other end quicker than maybe going through what you and I went through, where we just thought we're on our own. And that's probably a scarier thought than what's happening today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just talking to someone has so much benefit. Or talking to the right people, I think, searching out someone who has been through a similar experience, I think is
Yep.
really, really valuable. Because sometimes, there is still people out there who don't understand, who, you know, haven't had that experience or can't empathize. And sometimes that's not helpful, because sometimes you get that, response that you got from that first GP. But again, if you search out the right people and find someone who's had an experience themselves, I think that can be super valuable. And the more that we talk about it, the more people realize, that they're not alone, that all of us go through this at one point in our lives, really. And that by sharing our experience, we're all human, and this is just a really human experience to have the complete range of emotions and feelings. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's part of the experience. Yeah.
It is. It is. I can't say it enough. You will go through tough times, and it's just how you equip yourself to handle it. And I'm learning. The more I go through, if I see something that I get a little bit, wow, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this, I just turn around and I go straight at it. And generally, because I'm getting stronger and stronger to know that it'll be fine. I'll be okay.
Mm, yeah.
But also in as well, I probably know myself a lot better now, and I can sense maybe a drama happening, and I'm like, I don't need to be doing this, and just steer yourself away from it.
Mm. I think something that my teacher talks about, and something that I've learned myself through years of yoga and meditation, is that someone can have the most difficult external things occurring to them, really tough stuff like the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, health issues. And still, if their mind is balanced because they've trained it to be, then they can feel real solace inside, a real sense of joy and equanimity that can exist regardless of the external circumstances. And yet, also on the flip side, I've also learned that if the mind is not balanced, you can have a pretty good life with very few problems and not be able to manage the slightest, vicissitudes of daily life. So it's really often comes down to, what training we're doing with our mind to create that balance. It's not the external circumstances.
No, I got there's so many people that like through winter they, summer bodies are made in winter or whatever, but there's so many people that go to the gym. They want to train their biceps. They want to, make their legs stronger. And, just like, man, what do you do for your mind? Because if you're doing that daily, it doesn't really matter what you're doing for your bicep if you're not helping your mind, because your mind is actually going to help your bicep, and your mind is actually your greatest, strongest tool. It's like putting petrol in your car. No petrol in your car, it ain't going to go anywhere. And daily, I train my mind, and I've never been more happier in my life than I am now. And I'll only get happier even if something bad happens, or something that's a little bit whether my mother's getting older. I lost my father many years ago, and if mum passed on, and my dog last year that I love so much, it hurt so bad, but I just shared the greatest life ever with a pet. And I thanked her, that dog, for the life that she shared with me. It wasn't goodbye, it was just what a life we shared.
Yeah,
That type of thing.
beautiful. Yeah. And so how did you come to be at that place in yourself? You talked about, it's not just about going to the gym, it's about training your mind, and you train your mind every day. You were saying, what kind of things do you do to support your mental health in that way through mind training?
Yeah, well, it's just it's a step by step. It's just one day, and then another day you win that week, and then you win the next month. And like I've just picked up this thing that I absolutely adore doing: handstands and walking on my hands and doing headstands. And I'm 45 years old, and I'm on my hands more often than I'm on my feet, type of thing. I love it. So I'm living in a moment though. This morning I did an 8K run, so I'm not someone that just talks the talk. I walk the walk, and I was up super early and coming back down Strzelecki. There's a massive full moon at the moment, and you're just like, wow, how good is this? And then I looked out to the left, and then the sunrise is turning pink, the clouds. I was with one of my best mates, and then obviously I take photos of everything I do, and my social media is probably a little bit busier than most people's, but it's actually a diary of my life. It's a diary of what I lived in. So I go back and I upload the photo. So I then live in the moment. Or if I listen to something I loved on a podcast, or I will actually Google a word, like you said, a word just a little while ago. I'll probably go back over this YouTube and find that word and look it up to find out what it means. So I've actually gone back in time, lived in the moment again. And then I was driving back from Merewether to home, and all the bats at the moment seem to be flying over, Newcastle back to Carrington. And it's like I lived a morning before 6 a.m. or I lived a day before 6 a.m. So I'm set up. And then, I have to have a little power nap during the day, and I go to sleep in that little power nap listening to something that I'm inspired by. As I go to bed every night, I listen to something I'm inspired by. I'm probably too tired. You said I watched the sunrise, and then sunset, and then you said, oh, sorry, it was a sunrise. Well, I'm probably too tired to watch the sunrise because I've gone that hard during the day. I love it, and I'm just, people ask me, where do you rest, man? And they don't see my life. I rest a lot. I know about cognitively, rewiring my brain, letting my mind sleep. When you go to sleep, your mind or your brain actually deflames, to get rid of all the toxins you probably experienced during the day. And that's probably quite a deep level, but I love having that power nap. I love having a great night's sleep. So I wake up recharged, ready to go again.
Yeah. So a lot of what you just talked about was really kind of being in the present moment, appreciating
Absolutely.
exactly
Absolutely.
what's happening like right now.
I tend to appreciate than expect. If I expect things and I start to get, a potential stress about, things that I want things to happen, I want it to force. And as soon as I start to feel that, I just have to go back to what did I do today? What are the greatest things in my life? I've got 2 wonderful children that I simply adore. I might text them, just stuff like that. Mum, how you going? She's isolated at the moment. She's older. She's got a, kind of respiratory type thing. If she got COVID, that'd knock her straight over. So, you just text her and you just go, well, actually, how lucky am I that I can get out the front door and can take in breath. I can, say hello to neighbours and all that sort of stuff. So I just totally slowing down the process of where my old mind would probably used to take me, which was 400 miles an hour. Now I can go 400 miles an hour in, fitness and life, but I can just slow it down very quickly to go, you know what, slow down, champion.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
I think there's 2 key things there. It was like, the present moment awareness, which is often labeled as mindfulness, and gratitude. And they're really 2 key things that I've found myself, to support my mental health. And they're not actually easy. They don't come naturally. It's something that you have to work at, every day, and, kind of multiple times throughout the day, really acknowledging that your mind has wandered off, thinking about the future, worrying about what may or may not happen, thinking about the past. And a problem for our mind to be in those places. It's great to plan things, to look forward to things, it's, to reminisce. But if we're in those places too often, which we often are, we miss, the beauty of the moment. We miss our life, which is happening right now. And so it's this training to bring the mind back over and over and over again, which supports our mental health, actually, because really, when it comes down to it, the present moment, there's not usually anything right now that we're actually in physical danger. it's our mind that
Mhm.
that makes us worry about all these things,
Yeah, a
and take
great
us to
thing.
that anxiety or depression, right?
Yeah, a great thing I learned is like a zebra running across the Serengeti by a lion. They kind of know they're obviously in fight or flight. They actually know that they probably will outrun the lion. There's that DNA in them, and when they've outrun the lion, they go back and sit with the rest of their pack, chewing on grass, and that fight or flight just goes back to normal.
Mm,
Whereas I guess my life might have once been in that fight or flight where I was constantly running away from the lion type of thing, which was life. And I didn't know how to go back and start eating the grass and being with my friends and family. And I guess really that simile of that now I do I can just go, you know what, that fight or flight, no, I'm not having that. Just go back and start eating the grass because life's actually, I'm living back in the moment and I've calmed myself down. I'm a big fan. I used to be a big fan of breathing in 2 and out for 4,
yep.
and all that sort of, or the other way around. And I kind of now I still go back to that in the night if I wake up. So I fall back to sleep, very easily. So constantly, and my sports psych, who I did a lot of work with, South African man, very strong, and he still would be practicing techniques. And I'm like, man, if he's doing that, he's trained, he's like a warrior to me, an inspiration. I have to do what this man's doing. And he used to talk about if he doesn't do something for a couple of days, he can find that he starts to slip back into old negative ways.
Yep.
So it is a constant process of working on yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I think I found breath work incredibly
Mm.
helpful. And it's something that, we take for granted. I know um, when I first started having anxiety, if someone told me, oh, just take a few deep breaths or breathe slowly, I kind of was like, you just don't understand what's going on. I feel like, I'm having a heart attack or I'm just overwhelmed. You have no idea how's breathing going to help. But it was when I learned how to do it and actually understood why it was so beneficial that um, it was, really one of the key things that has helped me and served me incredibly well. When you get into the science behind it and the neuroscience, it's absolutely fascinating. Just by breathing in that way, as you said, extending the exhale twice the length of the in breath.
Yeah.
So that might be inhaling for 2, exhaling for
Yep.
4, or inhaling
Yeah.
for 3, exhaling for 6. You know, um, that takes us out of that fight and flight part of the nervous system into the parasympathetic rest and digest part, which is where we want to be most of the time. But we're not in modern life. Most of us are operating in that stress response, that fight and flight all of the time because, we're going 100 miles an hour. We've got, 50 things on our to-do list. We're, worried about the bills and the mortgage and our job and the kids and all of those things. And our system doesn't differentiate between having a physical threat, like we might have had in, in ancient times, being chased by
Mm.
something. It doesn't differentiate that experience with the psychological or emotional stress of everyday life, of multitasking, of busyness, of that. So we operate in that heightened state, and that's when we, can get into the anxiety, the panic, the overwhelm. And when we operate there too long, that's when our system crashes. We'd literally burn
Mm.
out into that kind of depression.
Yep. You talk my language, sister. But
Yeah.
I guess the other thing as well, like you're trained, like you just talk stuff, and I'm like, she's on the money. So you've got that real theory about you. I guess I'm more of a practitioner. I've had to go out and run X amount of hills to find what you're talking about, for my general day to day life. And I don't. There's probably not a right way or a wrong way, and everyone's life's different. And like I love listening to what you're saying there, and I can listen to people like you talk forever because you're giving my brain fuel. And I guess I learn about that. Building up cortisol, your frontal cortex. If you breathe, you can send it back to your automatic pilot. And if you're in automatic pilot, you don't really think about what you're thinking about. You're in a pleasant state of mind. And yeah, I love that sort of stuff. So for your people that are listening to you and your websites and that, I'd be getting on your bandwagon real quick.
Yeah, I think that it is important that the experience, we can talk about the theory a lot. And I think it is really important for people to understand a little bit about that, because when they know why it's suggested to do certain things or certain practices, it helps them to implement and to practice it regularly, because they're like, oh, this is why it works. But at the end of the day, it is about the experience and practicing it yourself and feeling how it changes you. It's really your own personal experience. Someone can tell you the theory till the cows come home, but unless you feel it yourself and you like, okay, this is how I was feeling, then I did this breath practice or this mindfulness practice or went on that walk or looked at the sunset, and then how did I feel after, that they really begin to see what can work for them. And I know, just to wrap up, we both also talk a lot about mental health being a multifaceted thing. And so the solution or the journey through that also has to be multifaceted. There's not just one magic pill or silver bullet that's going to be the answer. It's really coming from, physically supporting ourselves through, exercise, movement, getting active, mentally, the mind training stuff that we've talked about, the mindfulness, the meditation, training your brain with that present moment awareness. It's about connecting to other people in a positive way, being in nature, finding purpose, whether that's through charity work like you've been doing or work that's fulfilling to us. So there's so many different areas that we can begin to work on. And it's just a matter of starting somewhere. It doesn't actually really matter where, just start. Yeah.
And I think as well, like obviously I don't want people to end their lives, but 9 Australians do a day. For everyone that tries, 30, for everyone that's successful, 30 tries. So there's like 300 Australians that are actually attempting suicide every day, which is so sad. But you look at cancer rates, heart attacks, all that sort of stuff. And I think the whole message is that and you're trying to get across is, if you're probably happier, you're going to be less stressed, less chance of getting maybe cancer or heart attacks. And obviously, and that the whole regime of having a healthier society.
Yeah, it's all connected, isn't it? Mind, body, spirit, it all links together. Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap up, have you got any events coming up that you wanted to talk about? Is there another Nui 100 in the pipeline?
Within probably a year to today, the next Nui 100 will have been finished.
Yep.
There's going to be more people that can get involved in it. Not also, they can do the 100 Ks, but also there'll be maybe say 100 positions. So if you, for example, go, oh, I can't do 100 Ks, but I'd like to test my body. I'd like to do say 25. You could get 4 people or 3 other people to do that 100. But there'll be 100 spots, probably the way it's looking. And then obviously at the end, it'll be a 6K walk-in, or we'll be walking by then. But the last little bit will be 6K. So, and then anyone can just keep joining in for the last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The last 200 meters. And it's the whole of the Nui 100. It's not about the distance. It's just journey of life. Whether you've had someone involved in suicide, whether you want to support suicide, whether you are just wanting to get across your mental health journey, or you want to become that little bit fitter and challenge yourself. So that's what the Nui 100 really it's about. It's about local people, a local city promoting a local charity, and making mental and physical health more prominent. I've decided when COVID's finished, people now, if they want, I'm going to do a 19-hour walk run on the breakwall, which is flat. Obviously, when I did the Merewether Stairs for 100,000 times, people were like, man, I can't even walk up one set of those. Well, in COVID, if you're actually doing 1.9K walk a day, that's the length of what I'll be walking. If you're doing that every day, come and walk with me for 1.9Ks, 3.8Ks, or, 1.9 hours. I don't care what you do, but when COVID's finished and we can start getting back together as a community, well, I'll be out there doing it one probably Saturday, and come along for 19 hours and come along and support it, and let's promote mental health as much as we can.
Yeah, amazing. I think the work that you're doing is incredible, and I wish you luck, and I hope to join you on one of the walks in the future. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
I'll make sure if I don't see you this time next year or something, I'll start to go, where are you, Michelle?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lindsay. It was wonderful
No
to
worries.
have you. Yeah. Have
My
a great
pleasure.
day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Same to you.
Bye.
Bye.